Okay, when working in Adobe Illustrator, you're first going to open up the program. You can exit out of any tutorials that there are. Your screen might look slightly different than mine, but you're going to be creating a new file. So we're going to go to New File, or you can just say File New. So click either of those. Here you can kind of choose from a list of different categories. I usually will go to Print, and here is where you can set up the size. So I like to do 1,000 points by 1,000 points. I just kind of like working on a square canvas. You can kind of customize this. You can also change this to inches or pixels if needed, but points work just fine for this. So I'm just doing 1,000 by 1,000. I'm going to leave all of this the same. CMYK color is fine. 300 PPI is fine too, and we'll click Create, and it's going to create a blank artboard. Now uh, in Photoshop, this is called a canvas. In Illustrator, this is called an artboard. And I'm just going to move these over here. These are just some extra tools and things here that I'm going to scooch over. And actually, I'm going to exit out of them, I think. There we go. So something to be aware of that's different in Photoshop compared to Illustrator is that there's a properties area, and you're going to see me using that quite a bit when I'm creating shapes and using the pen tool. And then we also have layers. Layers are slightly different in Illustrator. You're still going to probably use them, but there's a few different reasons why layers are a little bit less important, I'd say, in Illustrator, just because you can individually select objects, and you'll see what I mean here. So in Illustrator, I'm just going to start with the pen tool. So pen tool is very similar to what you've used in Photoshop. So I'll just start clicking around here. I'll pull down to create my curves, okay? To do straight lines, I'm just going to click my points, okay? And then start back up there. Now here is my shape. It's also a path, so you can see that it's got a blue outline. And here I can control the fill. So over here under properties, if I click on fill, I can then choose, a fill color. I can also then choose a stroke, which is the outline. I can also increase that stroke. Now, in some ways, I think this is a lot easier than Photoshop because I didn't have to select path or shape. It just automatically says, okay, yes, I can be a path or I can be a shape. So if I want it to just be a path, meaning it's just going to tell the program, hey, I want to put something here, but I don't want to fill it with anything, I can click on the two like crossed out things here. And right now it's a path. If I click out of that, then it's going to disappear. So I'm going to go back. Okay. I'm going to change this back to a fill. All right. I can also play with the opacity of that fill so you can see the opacity of the image. There's also like alignment here too, which is kind of useful if you're trying to align things on a page, like a flyer or layout or anything. And you can do this with a lot of different things too. So something else to just be aware of. This is always going to be your move tool, this top tool. So you're going to click on this top tool and move it to where you need it to be. All right. And then you're going to, I'm going to just show you the curvature pen tool. And I'm actually going to just delete this right now. So delete. Curvature pen tool here, you'll see how this is very similar to the pen tool, but it will create curves. So if you need a custom curved shape that will automatically curve things, this is the shape to use. Now let's say you want to move these points around. You can still do that. I use this tool here, which is the direct selection tool. You're going to double click on those anchor points, and then you can move and squish and pull that around. So if you ever need to like edit a point or if something seems a little bit off, you just have to make sure you double click it, otherwise it's not going to work. And it might move the whole thing. So you want to make sure you adjust it that way. Okay. And again, playing around with the fill and stroke is all right there. Next thing, and I'm going to just make this go down here. Next thing you're going to do is the shape tool. So you're going to do the rectangle tool. And if I click and drag here, this will create a rectangle or a square. Once again, you can fill it with what you need to fill it with. Do whatever you need to do there. If I right click on this, you can do the ellipse, which will give you circles and ovals. You have the polygon tool, which will let you do the hexagon. And then I also have the star and the line segment tool. So here's my star. And then line segment is just what it is, basically the line tool. So I can click and drag and do some lines. Generally, instead of the line tool, I'll usually use the pen tool because you can do basically the same stuff with the pen tool as you would the line tool. So just something to be aware of. And then the brush tool, which is here. Now I can click and drag and draw, and you'll see it kind of cleans it up for you in Illustrator. See how I kind of smooth that out a little bit? A lot of times students get thrown by the brush tool. So just remember that you're using the stroke for the brush tool. So stroke is going to be your outline color or your brush color. And so I can change it. I'll just change it to like brown for now. Show you there. You can also change the size. We'll go up to window and then brushes. And then I'll double click on my brush. If I double click, I can actually change the size and angle of the brush here. I can also change how round it is. So if I want it more of like a calligraphy brush, I'll click OK. Now it's more like a calligraphy brush. Again, you're going to double click on the brush and that will allow you to customize it. Over here, you can also control pen pressure if you have like a drawing tablet connected. So if I go in and I click on these objects, you see how this is all now an individual piece. Even though I'm all in the same layer here, I can actually individually click on these. So that's the difference between Illustrator and Photoshop, is that you don't necessarily have to have a bunch of different layers. It can be very useful, and it might be useful especially with organizing your layers. But if you click on it, I can just press delete here on my keyboard and it's deleted, which is really nice. So that's something I do like about Illustrator as well. I'm going to go ahead and just click and drag too, and I'm going to show you how this works. It's going to select a lot of this, so I just literally use my selection tool here to click and drag around some of these, not all of them. I didn't select all of them, and I can press delete now on my keyboard, or if I wanted to like move everything together, I can move it as well. I'm going to delete it just because we don't need it right now. And I'm going to move on to the type tool. So type tool is just like in Photoshop. You can just type whatever you want. Here are some words. Okay, I'm going to make this bigger. So we'll highlight this. We're going to go to properties. And here's where I can control the size and also the typefaces. There we go. You can also enter in type sizes. So like, let's say I want 100 points. There we go. So here are some words. I can control the typeface, everything there, and then also the color. So if I use my type tool, I can highlight over the color just like in Photoshop. Okay. Now let's say you want to type on a path, which means maybe I want it to be like wavy. I want the type to be wavy. I'm going to just first copy this because I'm just going to reproduce this later. I'm going to do Control C, copy. Now I'm going to take my curvature pen tool and I'm going to show you how this works. I'm going to click, click, click. I'm going to make like a wavy line, and I want my text to be on this wavy line. But in order to get this line to just be invisible, I'm going to turn off the fill and make sure that the stroke is turned off. So I just have the type or the path there. So you can see the blue line. Now I'm going to right click on my type tool and go to type on a path tool. You can see it's like a little T on a little wavy line. And if I take this tool and I hover over at the beginning of this path and click, you'll see it automatically puts my text in there for me. That's a little too big, so I'm going to resize. Whoops. So here I can resize that, make it a little bit smaller. Here are some words, and it follows along on that path, which I think is really cool. You see how it kind of snakes along? I think that's kind of fun. And the path is actually transparent, so if I click out of this, then you don't see the path unless I hover over it. In which case, again, you can actually edit that path as well. So here, again, I can click and drag, move things down or up, adjust certain things as needed. Okay, next thing is going to be the rotate tool. So here, if I need to like rotate something, I'm going to actually just rotate maybe this here and rotate it. I can use the rotate tool for that. There's also scale and reflect. So reflect is kind of nice if you ever need it to like basically be mirrored. So if I go to like the reflect tool, you can mirror things. See how I just like flipped it over. So that's reflect. You can also do that by just going to object transform and then reflect. So here you can like choose the angle that it reflects at, which is also kind of nice. Same with like words. If for some reason I was like printing this on a t-shirt or something and I wanted to reflect things, I can reflect it vertically, which is what I would need. I need it to be mirrored vertically and like printed on a t-shirt. So another common problem that I see is when students go to use the eraser tool and they go and they try and erase something and it adds this black outline on the outside, and that's obviously probably not what we want. So basically Illustrator is thinking that we want to add this black outline because we've set a stroke to the shape. Now if you still want the outline around the rest of everything, there's a way to get around that. So I'm going to say Control Z to go back. I'm going to grab my selection tool here and say, hey, we want to change this shape. We're going to go to Object and then Expand, and then just click OK. Nothing has really changed here aside from the fact that you're just saying, hey, Illustrator, when I erase, I don't want it to add a stroke to the erased part. So I'm going to go ahead and erase there. Now you can see it did kind of clean it up a little bit for me, but it has completely erased. And you can also control the size of that brush of the eraser by using the brush tool there. So that is the eraser tool. The other thing is the shape builder tool, which I use quite frequently. And I'm just going to show you quick how this works. So first, I'll just kind of make like a little snowman guy here just to show you. So we got 3 separate circles. Now let's say I want to combine, I'll just change the color here so you can kind of see how that works. So let's say I want to combine all 3 of these into one shape. Right now they're all separate shapes. But let's say I want to do an outline around just the outside here, not every single circle. I'm going to use a shape builder. So here I have my shape builder. And first I'm going to select the ones that I want. So I'm going to hold down Shift and select the 3 circles. You can also just click and drag around all 3 and it will select them all. Click on your shape builder and then just click and drag across all 3. And here you can see it basically combined all of them. I got rid of those extra anchor points where it completed the circle. I can resize it now. It's all one shape. I can fill it as all one shape and of course add a stroke now to the outside because it is all one shape. So kind of cool. This is really useful for creating custom shapes too. So if you're looking for something a little more customized, this works great. So if you're looking for a way to modify something or make something, like you can twirl it, you can warp it, you can like really play with it, you're going to make sure that you select, if I can find it here. So if it's a type face, first of all, you're going to go to type and then create outlines. Okay, so basically it just gives you this outline. And then right now I have the twirl tool selected, which is this one. So you can kind of see it's kind of fun. I can click and drag. You see the more I hold it, the more it twirls. So it like really deforms the type there. I'm going to go back just because I'm not going to do that. But you can do that with a lot of different tools here. So we have like the warp tool here. Will let you warp. See how I can like kind of drag like parts of the text down and up. This is really fun. I think it's fun. Okay. We have the bloat tool, which is very similar. It's kind of bloating it up. It's a mess, but you get the idea. And you can do this with lots of different shapes too. Like you can do it with other stuff too, not just type. Let's see, a few other things here too. So it's a scallop tool, crystallize tool. I'll like do like a crystallizing effect. That's cool, like spiky design. I don't know, all sorts of cool things. But never ever forget that there are so many extra tools that are hidden there that you might not be aware of. I mean, like things like the spiral tool, an arc tool. I mean, just super cool stuff. So like, here's my spiral. Just make a spiral for yourself. Really, really fun things. So feel free to check that out. Don't forget that they're there. And the other cool thing with tools is if like, let's say you're like, hey, I love that spiral tool. I want to use that more often. You can just like click it and drag it over to your toolbar where you want it and customize it that way. So like the tools you don't use, like maybe you don't use the width tool or the eyedropper tool a whole lot. You can basically put those somewhere else. Like I just moved the eyedropper tool back. Maybe I'm going to put the twirl tool instead or something. Okay. So feel free to customize it based on your needs. All right, so the last thing I'll show you is the zoom tool. Oh, well, 2 more things. So a zoom tool, obviously you can zoom in. Something to note about Illustrator is the more you zoom in, it's never ever going to lose quality. So you see I'm still zooming in. It's like almost infinite quality, right? I'm zoomed in at 51,000% and I haven't reached a single pixel, okay? So it's vector based. It is not raster based, which means it's not based on pixels. So I'm gonna zoom back out here. So it's not going to lose quality. If I export this as a JPG or a PNG, then it will be a raster image. And when I zoom in, it will be, it will have pixels. But that's just something to keep in mind as you're working. As you save these, they're going to save as AI files, which are not artificial intelligence. That just stands for Adobe Illustrator. So save on your computer. It's going to be an Adobe Illustrator AI file. You can call it what you want. I'm just going to call it test for now. Okay. Last but not least, when you're finding colors or you have a color scheme and you want to fill in a color here, you're going to go to Window, Window, Color. Okay, so here's your color chooser. Let's say I want to change this star to a certain hex code. All you have to do is double click on the color box there and I can type in my hex code here. So let's say I just wanted it black. It's going to be 6 zeros. Whoops. Click OK. There it is. It's black. So it's super, super useful for doing custom colors that way as well. All right, that is all. I hope you have some fun with Illustrator. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to ask.